Welcome back to Better Than Before. My special guest today is Tristan White. He's the founder and CEO of the Physio Company, a unique healthcare business that ranked #1 on BRW's list of Australia's 50 best places to work in 2014 and has ranked as one of Australia's 50 best places to work for 10 consecutive years, along with being named one of the best places to work in Asia. From 2015 to 2018. Tristan believes we spend a huge part of our lives working, so we have to find a way to enjoy our work. And he's got a book. It's called Culture is Everything, the story and system of a startup that became Australia's best place to work. And in the book, he shares his 19-step system for building a great workplace. His approach is simple, centered around 4 basic pillars, and we'll talk about those. And he loves to share what he's learned on his entrepreneurial journey and does just that. He's got a podcast called Think Big, Act Small, as well as Speaking from the Stage. And so I'm so happy to have Tristan be on board with us from Australia today. Tristan, thanks so much for doing this today.
Tony, you're most welcome. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Great. And as you said, tomorrow is going to be okay. So we're talking to you from tomorrow, right?
Correct. It's very early in the morning here the following day. And yes, it has arrived. The sun is coming up, Tony. So all is well.
Well, that's good to know. So let's start out by talking a little bit about your book, Culture is Everything. And in the book, you talk about 5 beliefs of meaningful work. You want to run us through those?
Yeah, absolutely, Tony. Look at the Culture is Everything book is my learnings of founding a business and growing into a great place to work. And it is based upon these 5 beliefs of meaningful work. And Tony, they're pretty simple, but they really do drive me. And what those 5 beliefs of meaningful work are is, number 1, is I believe we spend so much time working that we just have to find a way to enjoy it and to make it an important part of our life. Number 2, I believe we enjoy work when we're doing something useful for others. Number 3, I believe we enjoy work when we feel proud of doing the right thing in a tough or challenging situation. Number 4, I believe we enjoy work when there are defined boundaries around what we should be doing and we have some freedom around how to do it. I call this number 4 step, the freedom within boundaries. And I think nearly every person enjoys knowing what they can do, what they've got freedom to do, and where the boundaries are, so they know what needs to be done by when. And the last one, Tony, number 5, is that I believe every team, business, or organization can create this freedom within boundaries environment that is the foundation of a really strong culture. And so, Tony, those 5 beliefs of meaningful work that are very important to me and the foundations of my philosophy, I guess, they really are quite simple, but they are based around the idea that people can do wonderful work and teams can do some amazing things together when there is a culture by design, and that is there is real intent put behind the culture of a team.
So when you founded, it's just kind of a curiosity question for me. So when you founded the Physio Company, did you found it with the thought that I'm going to make this one of the best places to work? Like, was that a conscious, on purpose thought, or did it sort of come about by osmosis? Like you tried a lot of different things, and as you went, you documented it.
Yeah, it's definitely the latter, Tony. I absolutely wanted to find a job that I loved and that I could engage with a team that inspired me. But I was a 24-year-old, recently graduated physiotherapist or physical therapist, and I was an accidental entrepreneur. I absolutely didn't have the intent to study to be obsessed by building a strong team culture. I didn't even know what team culture was at that time, Tony. So it was absolutely by accident.
You talk about the 4 key foundations to building a world-class culture. Could you share some of those with our audience? Like, what did you find that were really key points?
Mm. So, Tony, this is absolutely so I'll give you the tiny bit of background, and that is that I've discovered that you can allow a culture in a team to occur by default, which means pretty much you're eternally reacting and firefighting as a leader. You're moving from issue to issue, problem to problem, and probably email to email when we allow a culture by default. Or if we really intentionally create a culture by design, it results in the time and space that most leaders are seeking to be able to grow their business and have a little bit more control in the way they go about their lives. And that's the foundation as to why building a strong culture is important. And then as I've grown, I've learned, and I've stuffed plenty of things up. To be honest with you, Tony, made plenty of mistakes. But the summary of where I've got to as to what has worked by having a culture by design is these 4 steps to building a strong culture. And those 4 steps are: firstly, discover the core; secondly, document the future; thirdly, execute relentlessly; and lastly, a step called show more love. Now, Tony, would you like me to go into a bit of detail as to each of those steps?
Yes, I was going to ask you about the very first one. Like, tell me what you define as the core.
For sure. Tony, the discover the core is really got 2 main parts. Firstly, it's the core purpose. It's the why does the business exist? Simon Sinek might describe this as the why of the business. In the early days of growing the Physio Co, Tony, I think mucking around is the right word to use with trying to define a mission statement and a vision statement for our business. And I was just confused. I couldn't figure out what they were and what was the right thing to describe. And I didn't even think our business was a real business until it had those things, which was pretty naive. But I discovered from Jim Collins in his book Good to Great that a core purpose is a really great way to define why a business exists. And so I worked hard at discovering what the core purpose is of our business. I worked with my wife, who was an important part of the founding team, and also with some senior members of our team. And I researched all sorts of other core purposes. And finally, we settled on the core purpose for the Physio Co as the Physio Co exists to help seniors stay mobile, safe, and happy. It's a physical therapy practice for older people where we go on site to their homes to help them stay mobile, safe, and happy. And so the core purpose was discovered, and that's a critical part that's now been set for the last 10 years. And we've been able to build a team of people who are all committed to this cause or this purpose of helping seniors to stay mobile, safe, and happy. So discover the core has got a core purpose as a critical part. And the second part, Tony, is something also quite simple, but not so easy to define, and that is 3 to 5 core values or behaviors that we expect and we share in the team. And so by defining both the core purpose and the core values, we give some real direction and real clarity to our team members as to why we're here and what we're trying to achieve. And secondly, the way we do things. And by setting those boundaries up, by discovering the core, that's a critical part of the core of the strong team culture.
So a couple of follow-ups on that. We do recommend to our clients the core purpose for sure. Now, in your opinion, do you think a mission statement and a core purpose can coexist, or do you need to choose one or the other?
For me, Tony, I prefer to choose one or the other. I prefer to choose a core purpose as to which may be pretty aligned to the idea of a mission statement as to what we're about, and then in the next part of the system, document the future. That's when we start talking about the vision and the direction as to where we're headed, and so. For me, I prefer a core purpose and then a vision. I don't necessarily think that we require the mission as well. By the same token, Tony, it's what's important to the leader and what can be communicated clearly to the team, because this system is certainly tailorable to the people involved. And so I'd prefer not to, but by the same token, it can work if that's the preference.
I'm with you. The way I look at it, I believe the core purpose or mission, depending on the CEO's preference, is all about the why, and then the vision is all about the where. To me, that's how you distinguish those two things. Now, on the core values, how do you reinforce those? How do you make those come alive in your organization?
Look, Tony, I learned this from Vern Harnish, the author of Scaling Up, and that is to embed them in every part of your business that you possibly can. And what I mean by that is that we use core values in our recruitment advertising. We use them in our recruitment process to assess new team members. We use it in onboarding processes. We use it in ongoing reward and recognition programs. We use it in ongoing assessment of performance. We use it in as many places as we possibly can, including sharing stories of people living core values in daily communication, in daily team huddles, in email newsletters, in as many places as we possibly can. Is a simple answer to that one, Tony.
How do you how do you integrate new employees, like the onboarding process? How does your culture assimilate people into it?
Tony, we spent a whole heap of time figuring out our onboarding process, and even 15 years into this business, we've got a project happening now to refine that onboarding process. But in short, it goes something like this, and that is that there is a full day welcome process that happens for new starters, new team members. They come to our office. They're welcomed. There's a welcome pack for them, and they're inducted in the morning. It's an induction into the culture. It's about the past, the present, and the future of the Physio Co. and the people involved. Then we down tools and have a little celebration lunch, a little welcome lunch for the new starter to really celebrate them, because we're rapt that they've chosen to join us on our journey at the Physio Co. And then in the afternoon of the first day, we go more into the specifics of the job that they'll be doing, and they meet their team leader, and they get started on the tasks they'll be doing in the incoming weeks. And then the remaining parts of their first 2 weeks is really a shadowing and working with other team members, both their team leader and team members, so they get to know where they're going, what they should be doing, where everything is, and it's really a 2-week onboarding process, which is then followed by an integrated and supported way into their new job, which includes regular contact from our people department to check that things are working well. And it ends, the onboarding process ends after 3 months when we have the first of their quarterly. And the quarterly is a quarterly review process, which the team leader and the team member sit down and discuss what's worked, what hasn't worked, and what their next goals are going to be.
So let's just back up one more step from that. So then when you're going through your hiring process, what's your selection process to make sure that you're bringing people in that are going to be a cultural fit?
So this is one of the most important steps in building a strong team culture, Tony, is that we have to do everything we can to find the right people, to firstly attract the right people to apply, and then assess them during the recruitment process. And it was Tony Shea from Zappos who described the wrong team members coming into a team culture as polluters, and they very quickly pollute the culture if we don't get this right. And so the recruitment process, which is really part of the execute relentlessly part of this 4 steps to building a strong team culture, because it is critical you have a process, it is robust, and you do execute it relentlessly over and over again as you assess new team members. But in short, Tony, the process is learnt from the top grading method, and the critical parts of top grading, in my understanding, in my experience, is that it needs to be a multi-step process, and it needs to include multiple people to assess the new starters. And what I mean by multi-step is it needs to include possibly an online application, followed by a phone follow-up, followed by an interview, potentially followed by a site visit, and potentially followed by another interview, to really get to know a person, a bit like a dating process. If you have a first date, it goes well. Then you want to spend some more time with the next person. It goes well, and it may progress. And if you're lucky, you might get engaged to get married, and you maybe even get a job and you get married, Tony, in a work sense. And so multi-step is the first part, and multi-person, because existing members of the team interpret the purpose and the values of an organization just a little bit differently. And it's important that we make sure that we're assessing people against the purpose, against the values, against the vision as to where we're headed, and making sure that there is multiple people assessing and making sure that we're bringing in the right people and avoiding that idea of a polluter as much as we possibly can.
Yes, Jeff Smart is the pioneer of the top grading process, and I know a lot of people who use that process, and it's certainly really, really effective. Now, tell me a little bit about What are some of the traps or pitfalls that you experienced as you were building this? In the book, it goes into like a 19-step process, but what were some of the missteps or things to watch out for when someone is working through this method?
Look, I think one of the things, just to zoom out for a second, Tony, I think one of the big mistakes that I made in the early days was when I discovered this idea of a strong team culture and starting creating a culture by design, I really naively used to think that we could have a team with one big strong team culture, and overarching we do have that, and we do have, excuse me, we do have that linked to the core purpose and the core values and the vision. However, I really forgot or didn't realize that there's so many subcultures within an organization. And what I mean by that is, in the early days, we used to have these drinks on Friday night. It was called First Round Fridays, and the first round of drinks after work on Friday night was I used to shout. I used to pay for the first round of drinks, invite everyone to come in and have a drink, and hopefully we'd have a bit of fun and connect as a team. And we had a team of about 20 people at that stage. Tony, it was a small team, but only about a handful of people would come to these First Round Fridays. And I was devastated. I'm like, why are people not showing up? Why are they not connected? Why is it not working? But what I didn't realize, Tony, was Friday night suited some people, and Friday night completely didn't suit people that have got families, got kids, got weekend sport, got all sorts of other commitments in their lives. And the subculture of the younger crew who didn't have as many commitments were up for it. They were ready to have a drink. And I was in that category at that time. But the subculture of other people with different interests, different beliefs, and different commitments was something that was never going to work for that particular initiative or idea. And so one of the really big learnings for me was that you can have a strong team culture which are connected by important things, but never forget there are subcultures within your team which we need to understand the individual needs and wants of people inside the team.
Yes, I think that's very profound because not everything appeals to everyone, right? And so, I mean, depending on who you've got heading up the cultural type initiative, I think that's one thing they have to guard against because you have so many different segments, especially as your company grows, as you get to 100, 150, 200, 500 plus, that everything isn't going to work for everyone. I just think that's a really strong piece of wisdom. Now, let me ask you this question, because I'm sure this comes up every time I talk to a person or a business leader about culture. And they say or ask the question, how long does something like this take before you start seeing the positives?
Yeah, so look, this solution of creating a culture by design is absolutely a solution for leaders who feel reactive and feel stuck and feel like they're moving from issue to issue. And I can help them with some quick wins as to how they can make some quick progress on their culture. But inevitably, it is not a quick solution. In my experience, it takes a good 6 to 12 months as a minimum to really embed these important systems inside a business before we start to seeing the snowball effect of the right people being completely engaged in the job and therefore becoming advocates and attracting other people, because that's the beauty of a strong culture. You have the right people doing the right things and they become advocates, which actually help to attract new business and new team members. But that takes a minimum of 6 to 12 months in my experience, Tony.
So let me ask you this question. What are some of the things that you have found to be very effective as far as energizing a team or getting a team highly motivated toward a project or an outcome?
I think the important bit is we've already touched on this in some way, Tony, and that's selection, and that is making sure you've got the right people on the team in the first place. And once you've got the selection right and you've got given that your very, very most attention, it's about connection. And it's about connection between the leader and the team members, and it's about connection between the team members who are working well. I think it's all well and good to think that we can work together in an effective and motivated way, and turn up at work and get the job done between 9 and 5 or whatever the hours may be. But I think when there's a really strong connection between the team members, that's when we get a stronger motivation and a stronger level of inspiration. And one way to do that, Tony, is in the show more love part of the culture is everything system, and that is that stuff goes wrong in people's lives. We have ups and downs. We have wonderful times when we might graduate from college or buy a new house or get married or all those good times. But bad stuff happens too. Relatives get unwell, accidents happen. Sadly, divorces and relationship split-ups do happen. And it's at those times we get a real opportunity to, without prying, but respectfully lean in to be supportive people in our team members' lives. And I think by having a budget of both time and, if appropriate, money to send a bunch of flowers or a small gift to say, hey, I know things are not going great at the moment, but we're here for you, and when the time's right, we'll see you back at work, and we're looking forward to working with you when and if you've got things sorted out in your personal life. And I think connecting with team members on a deep level like that is the way you get a strong level of connection and a great long-term solution to a strong team.
We've been visiting with Tristan White, author, keynote speaker, founder and CEO of the Physio Company. The book is called Culture is Everything, the story and system of a startup that became Australia's best place to work. And I highly recommend you go out, get yourself a copy. There is a ton of information in here about how you can ignite and service a great culture that will turn around and service you in all kinds of ways in your business. Now, Tristan, you've got a newsletter that you'd like to share with people that they might be interested in subscribing to, and also how do people find you or contact you?
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I would really love to. You already mentioned the Think Big, Act Small podcast, which people can find on Apple Podcasts and wherever podcasts live. But the best place to find me online is tristanwhite.com.au. And at tristanwhite.com.au, you can download the first chapter of that Culture is Everything book for free if you're interested. You can get a Culture is Everything checklist, which is the 19 steps to building a great place to work, which is a really great place to start and audit your own culture. And of course, you can sign up for the Culture is Everything newsletter, which comes out most weekends, which got stories, tools, and ideas for people to learn how to build a stronger team culture. So tristanwhite.com.au.
Well, Tristan, I appreciate you spending the very first part of your morning with us. You shared all kinds of great tips and ideas with our audience, and I really appreciate that. I've got some other friends of mine who live in Australia that do some consulting, and so I'm glad to add you to my list of contacts and friends. And if there's any way I can ever do anything for you, please let me know.
Of course, Tony. I absolutely will. Great to be connected, and thanks so much for having me on the show.
Receive weekly coaching tips from Tony Richards, delivered straight to your inbox. Whether you're a CEO or an entrepreneur, Tony can help you reach your goals and give you a competitive edge within your industry. Tony's Monday Morning Coaching Memo covers topics ranging from leadership development to teamwork to company culture and more. Text the word leadership to 38470 to sign up for Tony's Monday Morning Coaching Memo, or sign up online at clearvisiondevelopment.com.